More often than not, when I'm looking for a used GPU, I stumble across quite a few screenshots of people using drivers that are not only out of date, but are pretty close to the first ever released drivers for these cards. Therefore, I wondered if that can impact the actual performance of the card and ruin the user's gaming experience. And so I decided to downgrade my RX 570 to almost the first ever drivers which were released all the way back in May of 2017, and compare it to the newest version at the time of recording. So without further ado, let's begin with the benchmarks. The most recent Assassin's Creed runs pretty similar in both cases, with the newer drivers providing a slight improvement by 3 frames on average, and overall being just a bit more stable. When it comes to The Witcher 3, the results didn't really differ from Valhalla, with the results showing a slight improvement in frame rate and just a tiny bit less stuttering. These results did surprise me a bit, since both of the drivers came out after the game's last patch, so it is good to see that upgrading your drivers can always get you some improvement. Kingdom Come Deliverance doesn't really care about your driver version, although the results did show a bigger difference in the 0.1% figures. But that can be pretty normal when testing these open world games, as it gets pretty hard to replicate the same movement in both cases. Battlefield 5 is where the most difference is shown until now, with the average figures being the same, but by taking a look at the percentile figures, you can see that with the newer version you get a rock solid 60 FPS, which isn't really the case with the old drivers. Dirt Rally 2 does show somewhat of a significant gap between the versions, but both of them are more than playable even at the maximum quality preset. With the Mafia remake, we are going back to the pattern of slightly better averages and a bit less stuttering with the newer drivers. But again, the game is more than playable even on the highest settings. Finishing off today's benchmark list with an old school esports title, which isn't really showing that much of a difference no matter the driver version, but considering the age of CSGO, there wasn't really expected to be that much of a difference. So after all, not upgrading your GPU drivers won't really impact your gaming experience to the point where it can be considered ruined. But the games I have tested are the ones that could actually launch, There are quite a few titles where I ended up with a message like this one when trying to start Horizon Zero Dawn. As for the other games, Cyberpunk would launch but display a back screen with audio playing in the background. And Hitman 3, for example, would instantly crash to the desktop. As I said, these are just a handful of games that I managed to test. And I'm sure there are a lot more problems just waiting to be discovered. So it is now safe to say that you should definitely update your GPU drivers. If not after every released version, at least make sure to do it once every few weeks.